Okay guys, what we're going to look at now is what we call square roots and powers. Okay, so what that means is, for example, if we have the square root of x to the power of 6. Okay, what happens here? What do we do with this? All right, now, back a few lessons ago, you learned that if you have a to the power of m, and then we raise that to a power of n, we get a to the power of m times n. Okay, and we're going to use this in reverse. Okay, so just like when we reversed the multiplication rule for simplifying roots, we're going to use the reverse of the raising a power to a power rule in order to simplify this one. Okay, so we're going to go from this way to this way. So in our example here, we have x to the power of 6. Okay, now x to the power of 6 can be written as x to the power of 2 times 3. Okay, so that's a little bit easier. So if instead of x to the power of 6 we have x cubed squared, then it's much easier to find the square root of that. Okay, so now we have the square root of x cubed squared. Okay, and you guys know the square root of something squared. So if we have the square root of 3 squared, that's the square root of 9, which is just 3. Okay, and we had that 3 in the beginning. If we asked you for the square root of 16 squared, that's the same as the square root of 256, which is just 16. And that's what we had in the beginning. Okay, we had that 16 to begin with. So if we have the square root of x cubed squared, then this is the same as just x cubed. Okay, so this is what we're doing with these ones. So let's try another one. If we have the square root of x to the power of 8, that can be written as the square root of x4 squared. Okay, and now we've got the squared outside the brackets, so we can just write down what's inside the brackets, which is x to the power of 4. Okay, this is how these ones work. Now sometimes you're going to get something that's a little bit harder. Maybe you get something with a number in front. So you might get the square root of 9x to the power of 10, for example. Now in this case, you also need to remember to take the square root of 9. Okay, so we have the square root of 3 squared times x to the power of 5 squared. Okay, and that's just 3x to the power of 5. Okay, sometimes you might also get one where this can't happen. Okay, so you might get one where, for example, you get the square root of 12x to the power of 6. Okay, now 12, we can't take the square root of 12. All right, we know we can't do that, so you have to think about that using your simplification rules. So we have the square root of 3 times 4 times, and we're going to do our simplification with the x, so we have x cubed to the power of 2. Okay, now looking at the number, 3 times 4 is 12. We know that we then have the square root of 3 times the square root of 4 times the square root of x cubed squared. Okay, now we can't take the square root of 3, but we can take the square root of 4. So the square root of 4 here is going to become a 2. Then we have our root 3. Actually, we're going to put the root 3 last because we know that we can take the square root of x cubed squared. So this guy on the end is going to become just x cubed. So 2x cubed square root 3. Okay, so try to do what you can with the number. Sometimes, like the first example up here with the 9, you can just take the square root. So then the square root of 9 is straight away just a 3. That's nice and easy. But sometimes if you get something like 12, you need to simplify it like we did in the earlier lessons. All right, now you might have noticed that all the examples I've given you so far have been with even powers for x. So for example, here we had x to the power of 6. Here we had x to the power of 10. Here we had x to the power of 8. And up here at the top we had x to the power of 6. I haven't done any where the power hasn't been even. Alright, what happens if it's uneven? Okay, we're going to have a quick look at that. So if you have the square root of x to the power of 5, what do we do in this case? Okay, this is actually a little bit like what we just did with the 12. Okay, we're going to change the square root of, we're going to change x to the 5 so that we get an even one in there. Okay, so we're going to make that the square root of x to the power of 4 times x to the power of 1. Okay, or just x. And you guys know we can do that because the square root of a times the square root of b is the square root of a times b. Okay, so again we're doing the reverse here. So we're going from the square root of x to the 5 and we're turning that into the square root of x times the square root of x to the power of 4. Okay, and this helps us because we can take the square root of x to the 4. We now know that we have the square root of x squared times the square root of x. Okay, and when you have a square root of something squared, whoops, you just get whatever was inside the brackets here. Okay, so this is going to become x squared, and then the root x we can't do anything with, so it just stays as root x. Alright, so if you have an uneven one, you need to factorize out 1x first. Okay, so for example, the square root of x to the power of 11, we're going to rewrite that as the square root of x times x to the power of 10. Okay, and you can't do anything with the square root of x, so that just becomes root x, and the square root of x to the power of 10 becomes x to the power of 5. Okay, and I don't expect you to do all the extra steps in the middle. What I've written here is enough, but you must show at least this step here. Okay, so I need to see that you've firstly shown that breakdown step. Okay, so if we did, for example, the square root of 201, x to the power of 201, that becomes the square root of x times the square root of x to the power of 200. Okay, and in this case we know that we get x to the power of 100, half of the 200, root x. Okay, x to the power of, I don't know, let's make it 15 is equal to the square root of x times 15 minus 1 is 14, so x to the 14. Okay, half of 14 is 7, so we get the square, we get x to the power of 7 root x. Okay, and that's how this one works. I've missed the square root there. Okay, so this is square roots and powers. This covers 4.4 theory A. Alright, obviously some of them are going to get a little bit harder than this. Maybe you have multiple variables that you need to work with, or maybe you need to work with numbers. But basically this is how it is. And you'll notice with the numbers that, as I said back up here with the 12, we keep it exact. Alright, even if you think, hey, I can just type this in my calculator and find the square root of 12, that's not what we're aiming to do here. We want exact answers. So 2 root 3 is the same as the square root of 12. That's what we did back in a previous topic. Okay, so good luck with this one.